Hey, Meg.
Hey, Dean.
Okay, Meg. Tell folks a little bit about you and then tell them this. Okay. And here's the hypothetical for this episode. You are like super great, we're going to say, at like getting clients, closing clients, getting a deal. And so you've secured and have just started a 1 year engagement, which is relatively long for a lot of fractional CMOs. A 1 year fractional CMO engagement. And today is day one. Right. So tell folks a little bit about you and then talk about what you normally like kind of wade into or find or try to do in the first 3 months of a brand new engagement.
Okay, sounds great. So I'm Meg Skiff, and I'm a fractional CMO that works with primarily B2B startups and
Mhm.
sometimes smaller businesses and occasionally larger organizations. Um, Typically, when I first start working with a client, I have a really clear sense of what they're trying to accomplish based on the sales process.
Mhm.
And typically, they're either looking for a go to market strategy or they're looking to start to understand how they can generate more leads or even start generating leads at all. Or sometimes they have started their marketing program and they have little bits here and there and they want to just kind of bring it all together so that it's performing as a holistic program. So, day one is spent kicking off the engagement with a workshop to start to put together the pieces of a marketing plan where we're going to identify goals and look at the right strategies to bring those goals to reality and
Right.
then go into the tactical plan to make it happen.
Busy first 90 days, it sounds like. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, Tracy, hi, and welcome to episode 116.
Thank you, Dean, again,
Oh,
having
my
me.
Lord.
Yes.
Um, Tell folks a little bit about you as well. And then let's like recharacterize the question a little bit, right? Most of your clients, I mean, you've had like enough clients at this point across like enough time, right? Spectrum. Like most of your clients tend to have what kind of problems that you need to address in the first 90 days. So who are
So,
you? And talk to me about the first 90 days.
sounds great, Dean. So, Tracy Wehringer, owner of Moonshot Strategy, where
Mhm.
I primarily focus on mid-sized companies. But to answer your specific question, what I generally do is do a deep dive, completely understand their problems that they have. And then my focus is really gaining that understanding from the CEO, the owner, the founder. Um, what is their vision moving forward over the next year or two? And then asking those specific questions that are needed in my discovery. Um, so within those questions that I ask are,
Mhm.
what are those top three strategic priorities for the company in the next 12 months? How do you measure success at the highest level, especially if they have a board? What are they looking to achieve? And from that lens, what are their immediate challenges that I need to learn and understand from their lens? Um, and then I gain a complete deep dive. I go through and review all their data from any tech stack that they have, understanding their financial data, where they are, their pipeline data from a sales lens, and marketing. How does marketing play into the sales data? What does that look like? Is marketing and sales pretty much um, held together at that highest level? Are they integrated? You
Right.
know, so I go through and gain that understanding, and then develop out that what that strategic plan looks like.
Are they
Um,
typically integrated marketing and sales for your clients? I mean,
no, no,
no.
it's
Oh
very
boy, that
difficult.
was a
Yeah,
strong no.
yeah, yeah,
Oof.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Fair enough.
Absolutely. So it's very difficult, when they're not, when marketing is off doing one strategy that's not aligned to sales, and especially now with the whole hyper focus on growth marketing, or revenue marketing, is having that integration and that alignment, and where I actually bring up the whole ideation of if sales is accountable and
Right.
held accountable, marketing needs to be held accountable as well.
Okay, so let's pretend that I'm not Dean, copywriter extraordinaire. I am Dean, the CEO of your client company.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's day one, and we're having our sort of like I finally get some time. You're on my calendar. We're gonna have a little sit down, and I'd say, so you're the first CMO that we've had,
Mm-hmm.
and the first one I've worked with. So tell me this: as CEO, what should I do or stop doing to make sure that the company gets maximum value out of the next 12 months you're going to be with us?
So, great question. So, maximum value is going to be derived based on the output of the discovery session. So say, Dean, you say that your overall goals is to open up some brand new markets globally, increase lifetime value, or, obviously increase overall revenue for the
Right.
organization. Um, Going through that discovery and understanding of the specific team, completing a talent assessment. Does the team have the right people to do the right things and attributes, and understanding of what is needed to drive those needles, right? So um, it's really developing up that marketing sales blueprint and what it's going to look like for the next 12 months, from short-term goals and long-term goals.
Right.
A lot of folks, a lot of CEOs are looking for those quick wins, but they always have to think, some of the roadblocks that I come across is, until you dive down and understand their sales cycle. How long is their sales cycle? They think, if their sales cycle is a 6 month from unaware of the brand to close one opportunity, and they think a quick win is 60 days into this relationship, you have to understand and give those learnings and say, okay, this is historical data, this is what it's been. We could look at ways to increase velocity in the pipeline, but it's not going to happen overnight, right? It's
No.
developing that engagement, that relationship, and that respect with the current CEO.
So, Meg, I'm still the CEO, and I imagine that I just say, look, like, I got enough to handle, right, on my own job here. So just tell me what you want me to do, or tell me what you want me to stop doing, so that you can do your job the best you can, and I will comply. Go.
Well,
That conversation's never going to happen, but just
right. It always comes back to what the goals are. And I think defining those quick wins, defining the long term strategy. Where do we need to be set up for growth next year, the year after? What are the channels and activities that we need to make that happen? This isn't something I can tell a CEO on day one necessarily. You have to really dive into, what the goals are,
right.
agree upon those, see what kind of activities are already happening, what's working, what's not working, and all of those things. But, it is also really important in terms of what the CEO should do or not do. Just staying really engaged with me is really important. I've worked with a lot of really busy CEOs, but the ones that, make sure that they show up for our meeting, or make sure that they take the time to touch base and understand what's happening and why it's happening and what are we testing. Those are the relationships that are really built to last. And that's where we can really find the most value from me being engaged with the company.
Then, Meg, I'm still the CEO, and I say, like, okay, so we've got marketing people here, and there's been supervision, and there's even been management of that team. But there's this. You're the first time that there's ever going to be like anyone at the leadership level who's responsible for marketing. You know, I'm looking at that team today. I'm thinking about what they're going to look like 12 months from now when you cycle out. How's that team going to be different 12 months from now than what I'm looking at today?
Well, a lot of the B2B startups that I work with, they
Mhm.
will start with hiring a contractor here, a full-time
Mhm.
employee there. And a lot of times they find themselves in cycles of random acts of marketing that are keeping them extremely busy, but
Yeah.
aren't really producing results. So it really does go back to using your goals and your growth strategy as the North Star to guide every single tactic that you undertake. And then you have to align all of the company's resources, whether it's team or tech or budget, with those types of things. So, what does the team look like in a year? Well, it could look like people doing different things. It could look like a different mix of contractors and FTEs. It could look like a much larger team, perhaps, hopefully, if things go well. But ultimately, what I'd love to see is when a team can really start to get behind this strategy and really align their efforts around the right levers that are going to drive growth.
And Tracy, how about you? I'm looking at my team, everything from the balance of full-time versus part-time, internal versus contractor, inside versus agency, right? How
Absolutely. Yeah.
what might that makeup look like a year from now?
Well, absolutely, Dean. So, as you know, with my clients, they're mostly mid-sized B2B. They
Right.
have a team together. They may be global, they may not be, and they have a mix of what does the team look like based on what you just walked through. Um, so, from my lens, as I come in, I will do this deep dive on a talent assessment, understand, from a part time FTE, what do they look like? What do they bring to the table? Do they really have the background and expertise to bring forward the 12-month lens of what that strategy and execution looks like for growth, for go to market, for those specific, the vision that the CEO has overall for the organization. And based on that, and based on their current marketing stack, understanding if that's the right tech stack for them,
Mhm.
and will it have the right functionality for 12 months out, what that looks like. And then the third pillar to all of this is generative AI, all these tools that are here that we're using today, what's forthcoming, what does that look like? Because maybe we'll be able to do a lot more of the execution with actually less people or less consultants or less part timers because we're able to, utilize a lot of these tools, but leverage a higher level talent
Right.
full time. So there's a lot of what ifs, but it's really understanding those the vision of the CEO, what the strategy looks like for the next 12 months, and do you have the right people going to the whole good to great book, the right people sitting in the right bus going the right direction, and making sure that everybody's accountable to KPIs along that entire process.
Makes sense. Okay, so let's set up our next scenario. All right, same engagement and everything else, but now like a small number of new fractional CMOs are at a little table in a coffee shop with you. Right, you're the seasoned veteran and expert at this point. Right now, I'm going to ask you two questions and have you fill in the blanks.
Mm-hmm.
Question one: many clients just don't understand.
So immediate results. It's either well, it is. It's immediate results.
Right.
So many of the clients want to see return on investment as fast as possible. Um, and building that in to a 90-day plan is paramount. So I actually reposted up a 90-day article that I wrote over a year ago with a worksheet along with that on what are those questions to ask. And one of the items to overcome is um, making sure that you provide that due diligence as a new fractional CMO, or even as a new CMO, to be very clear on setting those expectations out of the gate on when they will see approximately, their first conversion, their first whatever that specific goals is.
Right.
So immediate results is something that really needs to be defined, and setting up those expectations.
All right. I want to switch to Meg for a second. So, Meg, same question. Many clients need to understand what?
The buyer's journey.
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple touch points at every single stage of the buyer's journey. And no matter how much desperate energy you throw at a potential customer, if they're not ready to take that next step, they're not going to. And the only way for them to take that next step is for them to see value and for them to see a need. So, you can't make leads turn into pipeline overnight. That is, of course, the goal, but you really have to understand the buyer's journey and every single stage of the buyer's journey and what is important to your buyer within each of those stages.
Yeah. I've got a slide with like a quote when I'm doing my own process, and it says, "Here's the easiest, fastest way to kill all persuasion and opportunity with a brand new prospect," and it's this quote: "They'd buy if you only told them everything." Right?
Mm-hmm.
No, they wouldn't. They would leave you long before you got to the end of everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's like stages on a buyer's journey when you give them different things. You don't try to shove it in all at once.
So
Oh,
true.
all right, Megs, and then let's go to the other fill in the blank question, and then I'm going to go back to Tracy. So, because there's so many new fractional CMOs right now, right?
Yeah.
New fractional CMOs need to understand what?
What they are good at and
Mm-hmm.
what they're passionate about, and then also who they like to work with. Marketing is an extremely vast profession. There are a lot of different specializations within marketing. So I think it's really important to know who your ideal client is. And that could be everything from the types of jobs you take on. Like I tend to focus on startups, go to market, lead gen, because that's my specialty. But also, it could be some of the softer, more nuanced characteristics. Is it people that like to have more work life balance, or do you like to work with a really driven and ambitious founder?
Right.
What kind of energy do you like to see in your clients? Because you're spending time with these people a lot and you want to make it count and you want to do your best for them. And it's a relationship. So, in order to make the most of that, you really have to understand who you work best with and what kind of value you're positioned to provide.
All right. And Meg, I'm sorry, Tracy, what do you think? New fractional CMOs need to understand what?
Being data driven. So really understanding what you're looking at from everything from engagement, from understanding who the ideal customer profile is, understanding, leveraging all the analytics specifically to customer behavior, client
Mm-hmm.
behavior, and how to optimize. What is the data telling you? Because I've done several workshops with other marketers and sales, and even some new executives on what is this data telling you, and just because you say you're data driven, unless you go through that whole exercise of looking at all the different data points, um, and learning what you need to change to optimize. And the other aspect is, when you're data driven, is understanding how A/B testing aligns to um, the whole being data driven. Um, so being able to create and understand those dashboards, what are they telling you, reading those tea leaves and making sure that you understand what needs to change to scale, and what needs to stop because it's wasting resources or time, when you're able to achieve other elements from maybe other channels or other ICPs or other buy journeys, or even look at verticals, So definitely being data driven and understanding what that means.
Tracy, so this is a little unusual. So this podcast, I am not a fractional CMO, and it always has two fractional CMOs typically. And the pairing is random. We do not
Mm-hmm.
curate the guests. Everyone
Mm-hmm.
picks their own time slot. You don't know when you booked who the other guest was or would be. I don't know typically who the guests are going to be until the last minute. And it's kind of adds to the energy and interestingness, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so starting now in season 5, we're about a third of the way through recording season 5, right? What we have given this like kind of unique opportunity is I let each guest ask the other guest a question. So if you could ask the other fractional CMO in the session, like any question, what would it be? And then Meg's going to get to ask
Great.
you a question, by the way.
That's a great question. So, Meg, as you focus on startups, what is the major roadblock that you see when you kick off an engagement?
That's such a great question, Tracy. I love it. And of course, I had to giggle a little bit because with startups, it always comes down to resources. Um, it's always a matter of how can we get some growth going with as little time, as little budget, and as few people as possible, just to get to that next milestone where we can add to the team and grow a little bit more.
Great.
And Meg, what's your question for Tracy?
My question for Tracy is, as a fractional CMO, what keeps you up at night? What's the thing that will have you, toiling on a challenge later in the day, or, keep your mind circulating, trying to figure something out, or how to solve a challenge?
Great question, Meg. What keeps me up at night, or what I wake up every once in a while thinking, is, going back to being data driven. And there are times where, through A/B testing, I'm looking at different scenarios for a client, um, and thinking, I've always been an early adopter with technology in my entire journey, and always thinking, like, what else can I do that may be something new? Maybe there's a new platform out there that I could test out for the client. So it's really, when I look at my clients, what else can I do that's something different, unique, maybe not in just verbiage, but in tools that could be a better competitive advantage, um, for my clients, So, is there a disruption in the marketplace? How can I capitalize on that disruption? Those sort of questions. Those are the things that keep me up, is, how can I get my client to be first?
Great answer.
Okay. So it's been really educational for me. So like, thank you both for being here. We need to wind down. So I want to ask Tracy, and then Meg, I'll ask you. But Tracy, like these days, who should be reaching out to you, and how should they contact you?
It's a great question, Dean. So, I strongly focus on mid-sized enterprises, um,
Mhm.
and the people that usually reach out to me are, um, the CEOs, or even like VP of marketers that, and generally, believe it or not, a lot of salespeople reach out to me because they don't have that integration, and they're not, um, meeting their, what their goals are for the year. And,
Right.
from a growth marketing lens, those are the folks that really reach out to me, because I am a problem solver. I'll go in, do my due diligence, and help them with mitigating any of those problems that they have.
And how should they contact you directly?
They could go to my website, moonshot-strategy.com,
Mhm.
or through email. Mm-hmm.
And it's Tracy, TRA,
At
for the audio version.
Sure, TRACY at moonshot-strategy.com.
All right, and then Meg, who should be contacting you these days, and how do they get to you?
Yeah, I mean, startup founders and CEOs of small to mid-sized businesses, anyone who's really looking to take all of their marketing efforts today and make them work together in a programmatic and sustainable way. I'm the person to do that. And, even if you're looking to just build a plan, I have an online course as well. So it doesn't always have to be a full-time engagement as a fractional CMO to just, tap into those frameworks. They can contact me at megskiff.com or meg@megskiff.com.
All right. Thank you both for being here so much. This has been great. I loved it. That's episode 116 done. Woo. Thanks for watching. For the folks who are watching, you're probably watching this as a clip, and so there are thousands of more clips that you could dig into. So feel free and enjoy yourself. We'll see everyone next time. And thanks, Tracy and Meg, for being here today. Appreciate it.